Welcome to Catalina Treats Gluten-Free Kitchen. I'm Jessie, and I'm here with Oliver Tanner from Tanner Style YouTube channel, and Oliver is a classically trained chef, right?
I am.
Welcome to Catalina Treats. Glad to have you here. Tell us about the mission for your channel.
Thank you. Yeah. So, Tanner Style, our mission is really to kind of explore a principles based and results driven approach to cooking. So, I don't use any recipes at all on my channel. And it's all kind of in the pursuit of helping others to be able to learn how to cook for themselves and feed the people that they love. And we also do a little bit of stuff outside of cooking, so a little bit of lifestyle stuff as well. So it's just kind of a results oriented living, and I come from a place of not really having a lot of money, and I know that there's a lot of people out there, and so I want to help people to be able to take care of their own families and fight for a better future, same as what we're doing. This is our journey, and we hope that it can help other people on their journey.
That's really cool. That's really great. I work in an apartment complex, and we get commodities. And I'd always like to know like what we get ahead of time so I can do recipes for that kind of stuff. For the
Mm-hmm.
commodities that we usually get rice, and we usually get beans, like dried rice or dried beans. But there's some vegetables, fresh vegetables, stuff that can be really random. And a lot of times we get really good stuff like zucchini and stuff like that. But there's some other times that they come up with some, oh, I can't remember what they were called. Um, it almost looks like a cross between an apple and a pear, and it's very low carb.
Okay.
I
Right.
can't,
Right.
and
Yeah, I
and
know
so
what
we
you're
didn't even
talking
know what that
about.
was.
It's eluding me at the moment. But yeah, and that's one thing that I love to do on the channel and in life. I like to take things that maybe I've never used before and try using it in some way. And this is part of what I'm trying to do with results oriented, principles driven cooking, where rather than trying to find some recipe that tells me how to use this thing, I just take what I know about cooking and I go, well, will it work for this? I don't know. Let's find out.
So fun, isn't it? You feel like a
It
chemist.
is.
Yeah, that's what I was doing when I was creating some of my gluten-free recipes before a lot of the really good flour blends were coming out. I was
Hmm.
going over really trying to make combinations that would work, and my husband was totally fine with that because he got to eat all of the reject stuff.
Right, right.
But I think one of the funnest things that I did is I kind of realized that I could make hazelnut flour. I realized I could take hazelnuts and ground them in my Cuisinart and make flour out of them the same way that there's almond flour, and
Right.
make hazelnut chocolate chip cookies that are fantastic. Actually, they turned out really good.
Yeah, that sounds really good, actually.
But it's fun. It is fun just to kind of see what you can do with an ingredient, isn't it?
It is. It is. And that's where, when you understand techniques, when you understand how food is cooked and how to manipulate it to create what you want to create, you can learn that there are things you can do with vegetables besides steaming them.
Yes.
I think there's way too many steamed vegetables in the world, my personal opinion. Uh, and there's so many things. And you take broccoli. So many people hate broccoli. You can steam it, and you'll continue hating it, or
Yes.
you can saute it, and your whole perception, your whole experience with it is going to change. You can roast it, and you know, again, completely change. There's so many different ways. Take any type of cooking technique. You're still transforming the food with heat, but there's different ways that you can apply that heat. And when we take that same kind of idea with whatever thing that we haven't come across, I mean, this is how food has developed to what it is now.
Yeah.
Our ancestors came across something in the wild and they said, hey, what's this? Can we eat it? I don't know. And sometimes they die because it was something terrible. But, other times they'd find something, they'd try it out, apply some heat, see how it changed, and then they go, oh, you know what? This is really good.
Let's see who's in the chat really quick. We've got Watch Me Cook and Create. Hi, Tom. Thanks for joining us. And he says hello to you. Jicama. It wasn't jicama. It was something else that almost looked like an apple.
Yeah.
And great techniques and methods. They can create their own recipes. Yes, that's true. Someone has great techniques. Hi, Jesse and Oliver. I'm sorry I can't stay, but I'll watch the replay and definitely subscribe to his channel. Thanks, Karen. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
As long as you can. And let's see what else he says. I like doing a pizza with raw onions and then doing it with caramelized onions. Changes the whole flavor profile.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's that transformation through heat, you give something a caramelization or just scorch a little bit, sear it. There's so many different ways you can treat food, and you can eat the same thing in 20 different ways and have a different experience every single time.
An onion, a little bit sliced up, wrapped in foil, butter on the grill. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Totally different onion.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There's a few things that like that I've found can be, you're talking about steaming vegetables. The difference between just corn, cooking that, boiling it to where it's mainly unrecognizable, or just putting it in the pan with some butter for the same amount of time is totally, totally different. I love that.
Right.
And he says, Watch Me Cook and Create says, nice to meet a fellow chef on here. Yes. And thanks, Karen. We are subscribed to both you and Tom. Cool. Pickled red onions on a taco. The acid cuts through the fat and brings out all the flavors. That sounds good. That sounds really good. So what was the first thing that you cooked that made you decide that you wanted to be a chef?
I don't think there was a first thing for me. I grew up, I'm the fifth of 13 kids, big family. I grew up cooking, not because my parents were culinarians by any stretch, but because we had to. And we grew up poor. We had a lot of spaghetti and pasta because it was cheap. I used to think ragu spaghetti sauce was like for rich people, right? I was like, oh man, can you imagine having something other than just tomato sauce to cook with? What? Because we would have to make all of our own spaghetti sauce because it was all we had. We had tomato sauce, we had tomato paste, and we had some dry herbs and spices. And so I kind of learned mainly on that sort of a thing, lots of tasting, smelling, trial and error. And I made some really terrible things growing up, and I made some decent things. And then when my wife and I were engaged, I was, this is going to sound like it's on repeat. I was poor again. What? Crazy, I know. And so I wanted to be able to take her out, but I really didn't have the money to take her out. And so I said, you know what? All right. I'm going to figure out what we would want to eat if we were to go out. And I'm going to learn how to make it myself. And so it was cooking for her. And then I kind of looked at that and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm actually doing not too bad. I kind of like it. This is kind of fun. I like to be able to feed her something good. And so it was kind of at that point where I was like, you know what? I think I want to make a thing out of this. I think I want to stick with this cooking thing. I think I actually like this.
How neat. What a great story.
Thanks.
That's really fun. So now what's your favorite thing to cook?
So I don't really have a single favorite thing. I am a person who loves to explore, and I love to explore different cultures, and I think the best way to do it is through food. Learn about how different people live through the food that they eat. I am a little bit partial to Mexican cuisine. I really love Mexican cuisine, and especially Basque cuisine. So I'm a quarter Basque. I didn't grow up knowing what any of that meant. And it's only been as an adult that I've really learned anything about the Basque culture or Basque cuisine. And that has been kind of one of my big quests with my own cooking, is to learn more about it, dig deeper into it. And I hope to one day be able to say that I am a competent Basque chef. But
So what is a
we'll
typical
see.
Basque dish?
Basque dishes are, there's a lot of seafood. There's a lot of lamb. You see a lot of onions and peppers. Some of the classics, there's a dish called piperade. It's a lot of peppers and onions and some tomatoes, cooked just about to the point of caramelization. So we're talking red and green peppers. And then there's a spice that is used in a lot of Basque cuisine. It's called espelette pepper, and it's called espelette pepper because it's a regionally controlled pepper grown in the village of Espelette, and it's got a really mild spiciness. It's not overbearing, but it has just that right kind of signature taste that gives a lot of Basque dishes their flavor. The Basque country sits right on the Bay of Biscay, and so you see a lot of different seafood dishes. There's a whole Basque variety of paella. I love making paella. And it's very different from the Valencian style of paella. There is a lot of similarity between Basque cuisine and other Spanish cuisines. In Spain, they have tapas, right? And in the Basque country, they have something that's similar but a little different, and they call those pinchos, right? And so I personally, I'm biased. Okay, I lean a little bit more towards the Basque side than the Spanish side, but I guess the Spanish, they're pretty cool too.
I think that one of my favorite things, I love paella. I loved like almost everything that I tried in Spain, but one of my favorite things was a vegetable sandwich. It was almost like a grilled cheese, but with no cheese on it. But it had white asparagus and just
Okay,
grilled.
yeah.
It was so good. It had some other vegetables like tomato and I can't remember right off. I think there wasn't like a zucchini on there, but I remember the white asparagus, totally different flavor than a regular asparagus. But that was my favorite, one of my favorite dishes. And I had paella in so many different ways, and one of the ones that I remember a lot is just with the sausages, like almost like hot dogs and sausages,
Okay.
chorizo and stuff, but almost no seafood, and that's totally different.
Yeah, yeah,
It was a paella.
yeah.
Yeah.
And looking at all the different varieties of paella and all of these things, really, if you look at a paella, what is it that, and I've kind of looked into this, what is it that makes a paella a paella?
Saffron.
well, it's saffron, but a lot of it, according to the definitions that I've seen, is whatever's cooked in a paella pan.
Yes.
And so if it's got rice and if it's cooked in a paella pan, then technically it's a paella. So, when you look at that, you can also get into some creativity and make your own varieties. And that's one of the things that I kind of like to do also. I want to learn the authentic, the roots and everything, but then I want to take those authentic things and look at the principles behind those things and make something of my own. Because that's another thing that I've seen as I've kind of studied Basque cuisine, is that it is not this static old world thing that it is all. There are some dishes that are ancient, they've been around forever, but Basque chefs are continuing to innovate. They're continuing to make new things. And one of those things, so there's a classic dessert that's become popular. I don't know if you've ever heard of burnt Basque cheesecake. But burnt Basque cheesecake is basically, there was a Basque chef, he heard about New York style cheesecake, but all he got was a general description. He had no idea how to make one, and he decided to make it anyway. But he didn't know that there was a crust. So he just put parchment paper in a springform pan, poured it in, and he cooked it on high temperature rather than on low temperature, how a cheesecake is meant to be cooked. And what happened was that the cheesecake kind of puffed up on the sides, collapsed a little bit in the middle, but it got this really nice dark caramelization all over. And then they tasted it and they're like, wow, this is amazing, because you're doing things with the sugars that you don't get in a classical cheesecake. Now, this has kind of become a signature Basque form of cheesecake.
Interesting.
But this isn't something that was around in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s. It's actually fairly recent. What makes it Basque? A chef in the Basque country happened to be the one who did it, and so the innovation continues. And even today, like San Sebastian in northern Spain is well known as being the place with the highest number of Michelin stars per capita of anywhere in the world, right? And it's a Basque city is what it is. It's right in the heart of the Basque country. Most of those restaurants are Basque restaurants run by Basque chefs. It's right there in San Sebastian that they decided to build a really amazing culinary school, the Basque Culinary Center. Some of the world's best chefs said, hey, where do we want to put a culinary school? Yeah, that's where. And so there's, even today, there's authenticity, but it isn't static, right? And the thing that's authentic is the love behind the food and the principles, the techniques, all of that helps to create things that pay homage to the origins, but also take food into whole new directions.
So, do you cook with a lot of wine from that region?
I do cook with wine. Generally, the wine that I cook with is the type that comes from a box. I would love to cook with some really good Basque wines and whatnot. They do have some good regions, some good wines coming out of those Basque regions, but they're also a little costly. And,
Yes.
Maybe one day I will get to the point where I can get some of those good Basque wines, but I'm just not there yet.
I just love a good beef stew made with that, deep red wine. It's so good. And I use a deep wine when I'm cooking. I don't drink a lot of wine, but I do like to use it in my food. So I haven't cooked with a lot of white wine. I've done a couple of things with white wine, but mainly with red wine. So Watch Me Cook and Create says, my favorite thing to cook is a classic British Sunday lunch. That sounds fun. 3 brothers, 2 sisters, my parents having to cook for 8 every night. Paella isn't a rice dish with seafood in it. It's a seafood dish with... That can be true. It depends on where you go.
And that's one of those things that I've learned, looking at paellas. The seafood thing really is more from the Basque region. If you go to Valencia, they might be incredibly offended that you even put seafood in it at all, because for them, it's all about the rabbit and the chicken, right? And then maybe a little bit of seafood. And that's one of those things about the Basque region that I would really like that paella more. It's very seafood centric. And then, okay, we'll throw in some chorizo there too, because why the heck not? It tastes delicious, right?
That's the first place
But
that
yeah,
I ate
it's
rabbit.
really interesting.
The first place that I had rabbit was in the very south of Spain, Andalusia, and with kind of like a mustard sauce on it. I saw that you cooked rabbit, but I didn't see what your sauce was.
Oh gosh, that was a while ago. I don't remember what we did for that one. But yeah, we did. I loved doing that one. We got to go and visit with 1850 Farm, a farm around here in Kansas, and we got one of their rabbits that they had raised and slaughtered for us. And we bought another one and we froze it, and I think we're planning on using that sometime soon. We're still figuring out what exactly we're going to do with that one.
That's a interesting challenge, huh? I'm a big Bugs Bunny fan, so of course Hass and Pfeffer is something that I've always wondered what the actual recipe for Hass and Pfeffer is. But so where did you learn
Hmm.
about salsa matcha?
So salsa matcha kind of comes with the origins of all of my love for Mexican cuisine, which is so when I was 19 years old, I served a 2-year mission for my church. As part of that, I learned Spanish and I worked really closely with a lot of people from Mexico living up in Idaho. And so, working with these people closely, we would eat with them as well. And they would have us over. And, when I started that whole ordeal, I thought that, mild salsa that you get in a jar was like, whew, that was my limit, right? And by the time I finished, I had gone completely insane. And I was eating a lot more spicy food. My big thing that I was known for was I had a meal with one of these families. We would eat with this family uh, every Monday night for about 5 months, right? So every Monday night, and he and I kind of had this one meal where he brought a bowl of habaneros. I ate 9 of them in the meal, and everybody thought that I was pretty nuts. And I may have been. But, I grew to love peppers and salsa matcha. A lot of times you'll hear people talk about it as Mexican candy, and it is. It's so good on everything.
Hmm. Yes, I've had the chance. I lived in New Mexico for a long time and had the chance to try a lot of different foods from a lot of different regions there. And the food from the south to the north is totally different. And it's
Hmm.
it's so fun to see the different styles and to we've been wanting to do like a series where we kind of talk about the different styles of salsa just in our little small town Mexican restaurants here. Goes from like
Hmm.
a chunky salsa to just like a puree, and they're each so different. They're so much the same, but they're so different. So I'm just
Hmm.
fascinated by that.
Yeah.
Let's see,
Yeah,
watch.
and salsa matcha is completely different from all of those salsas
Mhm.
because they're all basically water based. And a salsa matcha is really nothing more than fried chilies and oil and maybe some garlic and other things and peanuts. And you just grind it up.
Yeah, and
Totally
and
different take on it.
yeah, and could be a beverage, right? I learned a lot
Right.
about cooking Filipino cuisine on the line at Filipino Line Cooks. Cool. Yeah, Filipino. Um, that's another type of cuisine that I really really like is like the Pacific. Um, a lot of different noodles and seafoods and stuff. So you guys
Yeah.
could do a lot of outdoor cooking on your channel.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, is that just something that you like to do? Is that something that you do regularly for cooking for yourselves?
So there's basically kind of two things behind that. One, I hadn't really done a lot of cooking outdoors, and so it was something that I wanted to explore and get more into. But secondly, and maybe more importantly, I I live in a crappy little townhouse complex in Kansas City, Kansas, and I wouldn't want to film my kitchen for anything.
No.
It's so yeah. If I'm gonna uh, film anything, it's going to have to be somewhere other than my kitchen uh, because this place is older than me by a long shot, and it's kind of cramped and a little tiny place, and you've got a whole family living in it. And so I was like, yeah, you know what, we're going to have to figure out something better. And last year we were fortunate to be able to get a hold of the piece of land that we do all of our filming on. We want to eventually build a house on it. It's going to take some time. Apparently, those things cost money.
They
I don't know.
do.
It's weird. Anyway, so until then, we wanted to get all the use out of that land that we could. So I just went on Facebook Marketplace, found a bunch of people who had bricks that they were just giving away because they didn't need them anymore. And so I took them, put them in a circle. I said, hey, we got a folding table. And bada bing, bada boom, we have a kitchen. And
Cool.
so I said, all right, let's start using this. Let's do it.
That's fun. And that gives your channel a whole different brand of technique, doesn't it? Because you're having to use the different utensils, different cooking equipment, and measuring fire differently.
Right. And it's been an interesting challenge for me, learning how to work with an untamed heat source and kind of look at that relationship between heat and food. I think that so many times people get caught in this world of arbitrary rules. Well, I have to set my oven to 3 for 10 minutes, and then I'll set it to number 5. Well, what do you do when there's no 3 and no 5? It's just fire, right? And it's like, one of the things that I remember one of my instructors saying during culinary school, and is absolutely true, and I've said it to other people, I've said it to my wife and frustrated her, is food is done when it's done. It's not based on a timer, well, is it hot? Is it cooked? Okay, it's done. And like my wife would ask me, hey, when is such and such thing going to be done? And I go, well, when it's cooked.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, but when is that? Well, when it's done cooking, then it's cooked, and then it's done, and it can be a little frustrating when you're expecting to have a time limit and have everything super controlled. But I think it really has been good for me to kind of get deeper back into touch with what cooking is, what it's really all about, and working with that untamed heat source and figuring out how to tame it in certain ways, when to cook over the flames, when to cook over the coals. Because, I hear people say things like, you always cook over the coals, don't ever cook over the flame. Well, that's true sometimes.
Yeah.
Not all the time. It's a good general rule of thumb. But all general rules of thumb have exceptions. And so this is about learning those exceptions.
There are some dishes that I've been wanting to cook like that, like some foil packs things, but it's been like 105 out here, so I'm gonna probably start that later on in the fall. But it's too hot.
Yeah. We we just barely put up an episode on rice. Before I started, I asked some people, hey, what are some things that you want to see me cook over an open fire? One of them, somebody said, I want to know how to cook rice. Rice is one of those things where, set it at high until it comes to a boil, then put a lid on it, put it on low for 20 minutes, right? And that's kind of the general rule that everybody learns. Well, how do you do that on a fire? And so I kind of went over that, and I went over 3 different ways of cooking rice, right? We did white rice, we did rice pilaf, and then we did a risotto. The thing was, we did all of that on one day, and it was a really hot day. By the time that day was over, I was cooked.
Yeah.
Leaning over this fire all day long with the sun beating down, and, between every take, taking a rag and mopping my head. And oh my gosh, that was a day.
So are there things that you've cooked there on the outside setup that you usually cook in your home kitchen, and you found out that they were like so much better or totally different flavors from cooking them over an open fire?
Yeah, there have been. So one video that I think did not air because it just didn't. Sometimes we have technical problems; things don't work out. We did a video where we made some mulberry jam from mulberries that grow on trees that were right there on our land already. Okay, so we picked a bunch of mulberries, and I made some mulberry jam. And cooking it over that fire, we got this nice smokiness in there. And it was so good. and it was totally unexpected, you know. And kind of a similar thing, we've done pizza a couple of times on our channel, and I love cooking pizza at home. Cooking it the way that we did, totally different. Same thing, we did some pie videos, cooking pie there in our setup out there over a fire. Totally different flavor, and you can taste it in the food.
I just think like a scrambled egg, you know, a totally different flavor when you're cooking it outside for some reason, for
Mm-hmm.
like you say, the smokiness, or just the different temperatures, and
Right.
not necessarily a different pan. You could be using the same pan, but it'll have different flavors. Let's see what's in the chat here. That's where I'm from. I was born in Shawnee Mission.
Oh,
Shawnee Mission. Cool.
yeah, that's just to the south of where I am right now.
So is there something that you don't like to cook?
You know, I don't really have too much that I dislike cooking. I really like cooking just about everything. There was one thing that we did make in culinary school that I did not particularly enjoy cooking, and I disliked eating afterwards. And that was we decided to make veal kidneys, except we couldn't get veal kidneys. Instead, we got kidneys from older cows. And if you know what kidneys do, they filter out urine. And, you know, see, the thing about veal kidneys is that they're from young cows that haven't filtered out much urine. And when you get an older cow, they've filtered out a lot of urine. And so the whole thing just smelled like pee the whole
That's
time.
not good.
And then eating it afterwards, it was like, nice, yummy chunks of cow pee. Yeah.
Ketchup on it, huh? Salt and ketchup.
Yeah, that was not my favorite meal to cook. Strangely enough, I haven't revisited it. So, I don't know.
So do you make liver? I'm thinking about going. We have like a butcher shop here that it has grass-fed beef, and I'm thinking about going to get some liver to make it. I've thought about doing this before, and I'm just scared of it. Do you have any recommendations for making liver?
So, you know, honestly, I haven't eaten much liver in my life. I had liver a couple times growing up, and I didn't particularly like it that much. I do like a good liver pate.
I do too.
I really like a good liver pate, actually. In fact, every Thanksgiving, I'm like, all right, we got liver, let's make some pate, you know, and my kids like it, and it's fun. Other preparations for liver, I really just haven't had much. And so I am open to trying out some new things. It's not a thing I've ever really been like, all right, let's go chomp down on some liver.
Well, I've heard that like eating liver is good for your liver. You know, like eating different organ meats are good for whatever the organ is. So
right, yeah.
I think that's.
No, I've always heard that eating cabeza is good for your brain too. So.
Let's see. I'm almost the same experience trying lamb testicles in culinary school. Yes, I've had the Rocky Mountain oysters before. Cooking outside can be wonderful. I personally like charcoal. We have a barbecue, but I don't like a regular gas grill. I like a charcoal grill.
Mm-hmm.
That just different, very different
yeah.
flavor.
Yeah,
So,
and what we do really is even different from that, because I like cooking over charcoal, but we have trees on our land that need to be pruned, and a few that were dead and we had to chop down, and so we just use wood. And it's not all, you know, the ideal wood that you would want to cook over, but it's heat. And that's what we're looking for.
Growing up, we had an apple orchard, and my dad did a lot of barbecuing with apple wood. That was fantastic. So good. And mesquite, a lot of mesquite. Have you ever used a solar oven?
I haven't. I think I've seen one at one point, and I was kind of like, okay, that's nice.
That's something that I would like to try also. I think that they're that it's interesting. I mean, I always have like these ideas of, you know, what would I what would I go to if we didn't have electricity for a week, like they did in Texas a couple years ago, and having a solar oven I think would be good. There's a couple of different types. There's the one that's kind of like a reflective, and then there's another oven that's kind of a bag that you put a dish inside of. You heat it up and then put the dish inside there. I haven't tried that one either.
Yeah, I mean, but I love to explore new ways, and so I'd love to explore, see what I can make with a solar oven, and kind of see different techniques that I could do with it. And, that's one of the things I love, to find ways around problems. You have to bake something, but you're limited by this, this, and this. And so how are you going to make it? Or like you want to bake something, but all you have is a range top. What are you going to do? And I love those kinds of challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always more than one way to do something, isn't there?
There is.
So have you made, I don't know if this is big in the Basque country, I would assume that it is, a tortilla patata. Have you made those?
Yeah.
Do you have one on your channel?
I don't. Actually, I have been holding back from doing too much of Basque cuisine on my channel because I have actually been kind of working my up towards starting a second channel that is focused entirely on Basque cuisine. And that's because one of the other things that I do is I manage a genealogical website for my Basque side of my family called echito.com. And so I am looking forward to starting the Echito channel, where I can explore Basque cuisine and culture, and just kind of explore it through trying some things out, and with the understanding that this is a guy who doesn't, I didn't grow up with it, and so I'm kind of learning about it. And the fact of the matter is that there is a severe shortage of Basque cooking on YouTube, at least in my opinion.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting to learn some of those different recipes and techniques. Just the Spanish tortilla. Every time that I think that I'm really good at it, doesn't work out.
Well, it's that flipping. That's the part that gets most people. That's the part where it kind of falls apart. And I used to actually make that from time to time when I was working at the Ritz-Carlton in Lake Tahoe. I worked in their garde-manger kitchen, and so with that we would prepare food to kind of cold preparations. But there was some cooking. We'd cook some things and then make salads and things like that. Set out some canapes up for the Ritz-Carlton Club area, things like that. And tortilla was one of those things that we would make every once in a while. And, it's just a matter of getting two skillets that are about the same size and clamshelling them and flipping them over. The trick is keeping them together as you flip them over. And that's just a little bit of, there's some muscle strength involved in there, some technique, some timing, and, you'll screw up a few times and then you'll get it right.
Yeah, and I do recommend, if you're trying it the first time, put some newspapers down on the floor.
Probably not bad advice.
So, is there something that you would like to try to eat that you haven't had before? Have you ever cooked or baked with mesquite beans?
I don't think I know what mesquite beans are.
They are made into a flour.
Okay. I'd like to learn how to cook with anything, really. So yeah, sure, I'm down. One of the things I've really wanted, so there are a few things, Basque dishes, that I've really wanted to try for a long time, haven't been able to. One of them is chipirones en sutinta, which is basically squid where you take all the tentacles and everything, you stuff it into the body, and then you cook it in squid ink. And so I've been really interested in trying that as well. Bacalao al pirpir, which is basically dried salted cod and then reconstituted. And then there's a bit of a process to it. You cook it in a pan with some olive oil over kind of moderately low heat, and you got to keep the pan moving the whole time. And you cook it for about 20 minutes, and the fish slowly cooks, and the juices come out of the fish. And as you're doing this whole motion and everything, as you're cooking it, the juices emulsify with the olive oil and make this really nice sauce that goes on top. So I've never been able to make that because finding dried salted cod has been a bit of a challenge. Finding some good bacalao to use for that, and when I do, gonna make it. Gosh darn it, it's gonna happen one of these days.
Those both sound really interesting. So does the ink stay inky? Does it?
Oh yeah, the squid. It looks like a little squid body that's stuffed and it's all black. It's all coated in this black sauce. So yeah, it's super funky looking. And yeah, I've heard that it can be a little salty, which makes sense. You're dealing with seafood, but it's a classic dish, so I figure there's got to be something to it.
Have you ever cooked rattlesnake?
I haven't. I've never had snake to cook with. Seems like it would be very bony.
I don't know how it's prepared. I've never made it myself, and but I think that from what I've heard, it's like pretty easy to cook. Maybe Tom has cooked that before. He says he's always wanted to try to cook in a solar oven. Yeah, I think I'm going to get one and try it out and see what I can do, because we definitely have solar here. Made Spanish-style tortillas. They're amazing. They are amazing. It's one of my favorite things. I did a Spanish tortilla for my final for international cuisine class. It fell apart, so I told my instructor it was out. Very nice. Good thinking. Quick on your feet there. Tried it. It tastes more like pork than chicken. Are you talking about rattlesnake, Tom?
It seems to me like something with that many bones would be more of something that I would want to stew than, whenever I've seen people do it on TV, they seem to want to grill it or cook it over a fire or whatever. But it seems to me like something like that, you'd probably want to stew it, get the meat off, and then extract the bones. I don't know. But what do I know? I've never cooked with it.
Let's see. So, Tom, how did you cook rattlesnake? Tell us about that. So, is there something in the region that you're in now that is a favorite of yours that you'd like to cook?
So I live in the Kansas City area. Kansas City area cares about one thing and one thing only, and it's barbecue, right? And there are so many barbecue places. And, kind of the thing that typifies Kansas City barbecue over other regional barbecues is apparently it's all about the sauce. And, I can make a pretty mean smoked baby back rib, and I can smoke and I can barbecue. I'd like to get more into it. It's that whole money thing that it comes back to,
It is expensive.
Stuff ain't cheap.
Yeah. So what's your favorite side to have, like, with a good barbecue rib? What's your favorite side?
I like a good deviled egg style potato salad. I've never really been much of one for macaroni salad, although I have come to appreciate a good Hawaiian style mac salad. I lived in Hawaii for a year. Um, so yeah, I mean, I kind of like the classic traditional stuff. You know, a coleslaw could be good, depending on if it's, you know, more fresh or a little bit older, where it's all kind of limp.
Do you like the
Becomes
creamy
a
or
little unappetizing.
the creamy or the vinegary um, coleslaw?
You know, I kind of like my coleslaw a little bit more towards the creamy side,
Mm-hmm.
but it's got to be fresh, right?
Yeah.
And that cabbage has still got to have some crispness to it.
Yeah.
The carrots have got to be crisp. Otherwise, it's just kind of, I don't enjoy it when it gets a little old.
We have a Hawaiian restaurant here, and they serve the Hawaiian mac and cheese, and they serve it on like a bed of shredded cabbage, and so you kind of
Hmm.
get like the best of both. It's really good. I love that fresh cabbage. It's very nice. Yeah. Another kind of a food truck that we have here makes a green chili mac and cheese, and it's
Okay.
really good. It's a little bit smoky, and they make barbecue stuff, and they make this green chili mac and cheese with it. That's
Okay.
very nice.
Yeah, actually, one of the things that so recently, some friends of ours had us come out and cater their family reunion. It was just me and my family out there doing all the work. And they did want to do a barbecue night, and we did some ribs. Well, one of the things that we did that I'd never done before, turned out amazing, was so they wanted some pies, and one of the members of the family really loved pumpkin pie. And so I said, okay, we'll do some pumpkin pie. And I took, you know, a can of pumpkin because fresh pumpkins are a little hard to find right about now. So I took a can of pumpkin and I was like, you know what? Let's do something. Let's make this a little bit better. So I took a sweet potato and I took a butternut squash, stuck them both in the smoker while I was smoking everything else all day. And, you know, I just roasted them in there with all the smoke. And then I pureed those, mixed them in with the pumpkin. And I'll tell you what, smoked pumpkin pie, totally different experience. And it tasted so good. The moisture was off the charts and the smoke was just perfect. Yeah, it was really good.
That's cool. Have you ever done a spaghetti squash like that? Like smoked a spaghetti squash?
I haven't, but I may in the future now.
That sounds really good, like with an Alfredo and shrimp. You know, that sounds
Hmm.
like it would be so good.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite fast food restaurant?
You know, I don't really eat much fast food, especially here in Kansas City. I don't. Growing up in California, of course, the favorite is In-N-Out.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, we just barely started getting some Whataburgers around the Kansas City area because Patrick Mahomes is from Texas and he loves it. And so Whataburger came up here. And I did live in Texas for a while, and I tried Whataburger, and I, I, I don't know. I'm an In-N-Out guy.
Yeah, there's nothing like them, is there?
Yeah.
We're kind of lucky that they've migrated to Arizona, so we have a few here. But yeah,
Us.
they're good. So what about
Yep.
like if you guys are going out to eat at a kind of like a nice restaurant, what kind of a restaurant would you pick, or is there any other choice besides barbecue in Kansas City?
There are some other choices there. So I generally don't. I mean, we don't go out to eat very often, but when we do, we generally don't go back to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
We like to explore and try lots of different places. A lot of times we will look around and try to find some kind of cuisine that we've never had before. Recently, we tried, there's a Nepalese restaurant here in Kansas City that we tried. Really good food. It was actually amazing. The curry that they had, they allowed me to choose how hot I went, and I told them to give me full send, give me the hottest thing you got.
Yeah.
And they gave it. And it has been a long time since I had something so hot that it actually brought tears from my eyes and made sweat beat up on my forehead. Because usually when you go to restaurants and they're like, oh, this is super hot, I eat it and I'm like, not really. I mean, I guess it's a little warm, but this place, it was legit. And I asked them afterwards, I was like, so what did you put in that? And they were like, oh, we had some ghost pepper, Carolina Reaper. I was like, yep, that's what I thought. It was hot, but I didn't actually lick the bowl, but I wanted to. And I had my little bit of bread and I was scraping out every last bit of that curry that I could. So good. And I've been wanting to try some African restaurants around town. So I don't know. We'll see what happens next time.
There was a little Mexican restaurant in Albuquerque that made the best huevos rancheros. And go get those. And it was so hot. You'd be sitting there like eating and crying at the same time. And then I finally realized that's why they give you a flour tortilla, is to dry your tears. Let's see what Tom says. I don't think I've cooked it. I've just tried a long time ago. Not sure what that was about, but whatever we've talked about sounds good. I'd like to go to In-N-Out, but they're crowded all the time. Yeah, they're crowded here in Arizona all the time too. And we don't have them in our town. We just we just recently got a Jack in the Box, and that was a big deal here. But we're too small, I think, for In-N-Out Burger in this town. So let's see. What dish is your go-to? I don't have time to cook. I'm just gonna make this dish.
I wasn't even sure what that dish was. I asked my wife. I was like, "What do I cook?" And she's all eggs. And I do. I love cooking eggs. And some of my favorite comfort food types of dishes all involve eggs. The first video we ever did for the channel was for my omelet quesadilla thing that I made up years ago. That is my absolute favorite comfort food. And eggs are one of those. I know there's actually a different definition for superfood, but I think eggs are a superfood just because of how much you can do with them. I love foods that are that versatile.
Yeah. If you've got eggs and potatoes, you can make 1,000 different things. Those two things. Yes, very, very good. So this is something that I'm interested in learning more about. Do you cook with grits?
I have cooked grits before. In fact, we did a video for Valentine's Day, I believe. It was all about polenta and looking at cooking polenta in different ways with different things. One of the alternative ways of cooking polenta that we did was with grits. So we made polenta with grits. We even grilled it afterwards, and it was pretty good.
Do you make grits for breakfast, as breakfast food, or?
So, I mean, grits isn't something that we normally have around our house on a daily basis, but I have had grits for breakfast in the past, and yeah.
Do you make pozole?
Oh, yes, I love making pozole. I do a pozole rojo. I told you that we catered for a friend of ours, their family reunion, and pozole was actually one of the dishes that we did for them. And I just went to the store, grabbed a few chilies, and it's a really simple dish to make, but I love how customizable it is to each individual person with all the toppings that you throw on there.
Yes. Yeah. And for me, it's a traditional Christmas dish. Is that what you find as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lime juice and fresh chopped up cilantro and sometimes a little bit of jicama too. Shredded jicama is really good.
Yeah.
Let's see what's in the chat. I did a video on as well on eggs. They're amazing, aren't they? Yes,
Hmm.
and you can. It's nice. Chickens are fairly easy to keep if you have that ability in town. So as a chef, what advice would you give someone that's learning to cook?
So, what advice would I give? I would say smell and taste everything. Taste, taste, taste. Smell everything, taste everything. Um, Turn up the heat too high and burn your food. Add too much salt. Um, make every mistake that there is to make, because it's only by pushing the temperature too far that you learn how far too far is. It's only by adding too much salt you learn how much too much salt is. Make all the mistakes, experiment, and don't be afraid of just making really disgusting food. You know, after you make the really disgusting food, then you go, oh, I shouldn't do that again. And then you learn how to make really good food. Um, there is no chef who can cook anything to any degree of skill or well in any way that has not made horrible, disgusting food. There is nobody who has any skill in the kitchen that hasn't made stuff that you wouldn't want to feed a dog of a neighbor who you hated. I'm trying to think of how much worse I can make this. But, you know, I would just say make all the mistakes, but don't just keep making the mistakes. Make all the mistakes and learn what you did
Learn
wrong.
from them. Yeah. Yeah, I think that one thing that's good to learn is that parsley can make stuff prettier. If something doesn't look pretty, you want to present it well, add some parsley. And if something's creamy and it's doesn't taste as good as you want it to, add some butter.
Hmm. Well, and you know, I have two secret ingredients that I go to all the time. Nutmeg makes almost everything better. It's not just for pumpkin pie. Nutmeg is one of those spices that's been around for a long time. People have been using it in everything for a long time because it's delicious. I love nutmeg.
Yeah, my friend at
That
Black Cat
and
Kitchen, she uses that too in almost everything.
mhm, that and a little bit of spiciness. You know, you don't have to put habaneros into everything.
Yeah,
You can put habaneros into everything. That's okay too. Certainly okay by me. But you know, throw in some cayenne pepper into something. Whenever I make mayonnaise or whatever, I always throw in some cayenne pepper. Not because it makes it spicy, because it really does enhance the flavor
yeah.
just that much. Add a little bit of spice, and you can really bring a lot of life to just about anything.
Well, Tom says I tell my culinary students there's nothing wrong with making a mistake as long as they do what they can to fix it.
Hmm.
That's true. And a lot of times, if something burns, you can scrape the burned parts off. I've made every mistake in the book.
Yep.
Yeah, I've a lot of what I was trying to come up with some of the recipes when I was doing a lot of the gluten-free cookies is just having to try recipes over and over again. It does get expensive, of course,
Hmm.
get very expensive, but it can also be really fun. And
Yeah. Yeah.
another ingredient that I think is kind of underused is cream of tartar. That's such an interesting ingredient,
Hmm.
and it can do a lot of different things. So, if you could cook for anyone, past or present, who would you want to cook for?
So present, it'd just be my family. Um, Past, I guess it'd still be my family. Past, I would love to be able to cook a meal for my great grandfather. He was. This is kind of on the Basque side. Okay, his name was Joseph Echito, and he was one of the few Basque immigrants to come to America actually as a chef. He owned a bakery in Turlock, California, one of the biggest and most advanced bakeries of the time. and it all fell apart, and he lost everything in the Depression, and then he was institutionalized in an asylum, and lots of bad things, but I would love to be able to cook with him, make a meal for him, and just say, hey, what do you think?
That would be cool. It's interesting how much food does change over the years, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever watched Cooking the Books, her channel?
I haven't. It sounds familiar. I haven't seen it yet, though.
She uses recipes from vintage cookbooks. And
Okay.
she was just talking on her last video about aspic. Like, you never see that
Mm-hmm.
anymore, right? That was a total 1970s thing. So what do you think what is the service that your channel is providing above everything?
I hope that the service that we're providing is helping people to learn how to cook, like how to really cook. I studied guitar a little bit when I was younger, and I was mostly self-taught. I did take a few actual real lessons and classes and whatnot. But somebody said something to me. He said, so are you looking to just learn how to play a few songs, or are you looking to actually learn how to play? And I kind of thought about that, and there's a difference between being able to play some songs and actually being able to play. And I find that difference applies to just about any kind of pursuit, and it definitely applies to cooking. I want people to be able to learn how to follow a recipe. I want people to be able to learn how to cook. And, that's kind of what I'm hoping that I can help people to do, is bring back that, help people to bring back that knowledge of actually knowing how to cook.
The fundamentals.
Right. The fundamentals and the basics. And, some of the things that I was actually looking for early on when I wanted to, when I did decide after making some things for my wife that I wanted to cook. One of the things I did is I went and I did a stage, or kind of a little trial period at a really nice restaurant just north of Fresno. At the time, I think the name has changed now. At the time, it was Erna's Elderberry House. And I went and I did a little one-day stage out there. The chef gave me a try in the kitchen. I went out there, I worked, and at the end of the day, he said, you know what? I like your work. The quality of your work is top-notch. You're doing good stuff, but you're not quick enough. And your knife skills are not where they need to be. He said, go learn some knife skills, then come back. And I never did get the chance to go back. But, at the time, I said, okay, learn knife skills. And this was back before the internet was what it is today. This was back, 2001, 2002? The internet was around, but it wasn't nearly what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And there were no videos out there teaching me knife skills. I went to the library, couldn't find anything. And so, right now, I'm actually working on a series on knife skills, because this is the stuff that I wanted when I was trying to learn something. And so I'm trying to provide something, for maybe there's somebody out there like me who's looking to learn something. And, if nobody else provides it, I know that I will.
That's good. Yeah, I was watching your like buying knives too. That's part of the knife skill, is buying the right knife.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. Cool. How many different states have you lived in?
All right, so let's see. I'm just going to list everything off here. So I lived in Utah, California, Nevada, lived in England for 3 years, Arizona, Texas, Hawaii, California again, Wyoming, and now Kansas.
Cool. Nice places, huh? You've seen a lot of beautiful country.
I have.
Where were you in Hawaii?
I lived on Oahu, and we lived up on the North Shore in the little town of Waialua.
Cool. Very fun. And where were you in Arizona?
In Arizona, I was stationed at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson. So
nice. So you got some some good different kinds of food down there too. They have a lot of different, a big
Yeah.
variety of food in Tucson.
Yeah.
Aspic gelatin made with consomme. Not good. It's not good. A firm
Well,
believer.
it's good for presentation.
Yes.
If you know, once you get into competitions and whatnot, you're going to use aspics like crazy.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's a whole different thing.
I'm a firm believer that in my kitchen, my students make their own salad dressings, butcher their protein, and make their own mayonnaise. That's very interesting. That's a good skill to learn. I didn't know that I could make mayonnaise until I lived in Spain and they made mayonnaise there. Like they didn't have jars of mayonnaise; they just made mayonnaise. You can do that.
Yeah. In fact,
life skills.
if I need mayonnaise for something, or if I need whipped cream, I hate using anything from a jar. And I don't like to use any kind of I take a bowl, I take a whisk, and I make it myself. And that's how you do it in the way that I look at it. Sometimes if I'm really in a rush, then okay, I'll use a KitchenAid, or something else. But handmade is really the way to go as far as I'm concerned.
You just get different flavors, don't you?
You do.
Char says he forgot Idaho.
I thought I said Idaho. I don't know. Sorry.
That's good. A lot of different experiences.
Just for the record, Idaho is a weird place. When you watch Napoleon Dynamite, it's pretty much a documentary. So,
yeah,
nothing but love to all those weird Idaho people.
It does have some pretty country, though.
It does. It does.
Well, I think that I would like to challenge you to make a tortilla patata.
Okay.
And I've had it a couple of different ingredients in it, but mainly just like the potato and egg. Do you put onions in yours?
I have done onions in mine in the past, yeah.
Do you put chorizo?
If I'm going to do chorizo, I try to get the right stuff, right? Mexican chorizo is not the same thing as Spanish chorizo, not by a long shot. Mexican chorizo is much more loose product, and it's a lot more flavored by like ancho chiles and stuff like that. You can really taste the difference in the chilies used. The Mexican stuff is it's a very different product. And getting the right Spanish chorizos, it can be a challenge.
Yes.
Not something you're going to pick up at Walmart. The closest thing you're going to find to it is like a good andouille sausage, right? But even that, it's not really the same.
It's not the same.
It's just the closest thing, like as in, a circle drawn on a wall is the closest thing to a target out of that and barn.
Well, I would love to see a video on a tortilla de patata, and I'll try to make one too. If see what we come up with.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That's a nice gluten-free dish that you don't think of it as a gluten-free dish, but it doesn't have any gluten in it until you add it on top of a baguette, because that's the right way to eat it. I got to get going. Thanks, guys. Really great interview. Yep, we've got to get going. Also, we've got to sign off here. We're a little bit over our time, but that's good. A lot of good things.
Sorry about that. Anything
else that you'd like to add before we go?
No, it was really great talking to you. And if anybody wants to kind of check out what we're doing, any of our upcoming projects, so we're Tanner Style on YouTube, but we have a lot of different projects that we do actually, and everything it kind of comes together on our website, scratchmadeliving.com, and we kind of put everything all together in one spot there, and you can scroll down the page, you'll find links to everything. And sometime soon I'm going to be launching another effort, I also do fruit and vegetable carving, and I do it pretty well, I think.
How fun!
So, yeah, I'm kind of looking at starting that as a business effort here in the Kansas City area as well. I'm going to be posting some videos online of all
Very
that kind of
nice.
stuff. So,
That sounds fun.
yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll link the scratchmadeliving.com in the description box also.
Thank
And
you.
and we do have a collaboration coming up, back to school food. So
Mm-hmm.
like cafeteria food, your favorite cafeteria food or lunchbox food. And so that's going to be on August 15th, just the hashtag school cafeteria food. So I'd love to see you join in on that, and interested to see what you come up with. And
Yeah, we'll see
be
what
fun.
crazy stuff bounces around in my brain.
Juice box. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and very nice talking to you. And we look forward to seeing more of your videos. And you're doing a great job, great service.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.